Hello everybody, my name is David Brown and today I'm going to be reviewing the MarimbaOne Jason Marsalis series JMR2s and the JMR3s. Now I have made a lot of mallets from scratch. Some are good, some are not so good, but more importantly I've learned a lot about what makes mallets tick. So I'd like to share some of my insights today with the MarimbaOne Jason Marsalis series. I'm going to divide this review into two parts. The first one is the mallet construction, where I talk about how the mallets are put together and certain aspects of that. And the second one is the sound test, which explains itself. Now, as far as the thickness of the shaft, you can see there, kind of compared to my fingers, it's not too crazy, it's not bulky or hard to handle, but it's definitely a little thicker than kind of the flimsy rattan that a lot of mallets are kind of trending towards, which is nice because, you know, that means that over time it's going to flex and bend a little bit less. On the shaft itself, we have a few details. We have the MarimbaOne logo, Jason Marsalis' name, his signature, and then the model number. These details are laser engraved, which is nice. That's my preference. I know some people prefer print, but that laser engraving just lasts a little longer. You'll be able to see it. It's a nice detail. Now, the very end of the shaft, this surprised me, because as I mentioned earlier, Jason Marsalis plays using the Musser-Stevens grip. The shaft, it's rounded, but it's not perfectly sanded, and it's not evenly rounded either. And there are kind of some bits that stick out there. It's very rough. So I don't play using Stevens grip personally, but when I've had to with these mallets, it's been kind of annoying, just because it kind of irritates your hand, it's rough on the skin, so that's something to consider. All right, so this mallet is just about 15 inches long, the shaft and the head included. And then that's a little interesting because that means that the shaft itself is a little shorter than the market standard today. Normally you'd see a shaft that's like 15 inches or 15 and a half inches. This shaft probably looks like 14 and a half inches or maybe up to 15 inches. And I think that comes down to Jason Marsalis playing with the Stevens grip, and because he gets a little bit more reach because his mallets aren't slid all the way back into his hands, he just doesn't need that extra length. And the length of these mallets is definitely helpful because when you're trying to switch intervals, some tricky accidentals there, it can make it faster and more comfortable. So if you've ever seen MarimbaOne's video on how they make mallets, you'll know that they use different hardnesses and sizes of these rubber mushroom shaped cores that they stick on the end of their shafts. And once those are wrapped, they turn to this kind of ball shape, which just is slightly bigger on the bottom than it is on the top. That's going to result in kind of that contact sound that MarimbaOne mallets have become notorious for. MarimbaOne mallets always seem to kind of have that little like slapping sound when you hit the bar, so definitely be looking out for that in the sound test. Another thing about these mallets is that I can definitely tell that they are weighted. These are some heavy mallets. They're not too heavy, but it's definitely not like there's nothing up there. I can tell there's a brass weight or something to give a little more oomph in that head, and that's going to contribute to volume in these mallets. And another thing you're also going to want to watch out for in the sound test, a lot of times with heavy mallets, they can generate more frame noise, especially on an instrument like a vibraphone with a lot going on in the frame. So in order for MarimbaOne mallets to have this kind of double yarn helixy pattern that you see, each mallet is actually machine wrapped, and the way that they do that is they have two strands of yarn and they have them on opposite sides of the mallet, and they're each doing an identical pattern, and that results in this helix pattern that you see here. The stitches, however, are done by human hands, and on each mallet, top and bottom, I count about 9 to 10 stitches. That's not the highest number, but 9 to 10 should definitely be more than enough. Durability-wise, should hold the mallet together just fine. Because there are two different strands of yarn, the top stitches are done with one color, and the bottom stitches are done with the other color. Now, just one more thing about the wrapping of these mallets. So it's clear to me that this pattern is intended to leave a gap right in the middle there. You can actually see the rubber core if you look down into it. with better lighting than I'm giving you right now. But that's been kind of inconsistent. For the mallets that I received, you can see on this JMR2, there's actually a strand of the green yarn that went straight over the head when the wrap started. That's not a big deal at all, but it is just a little bit of an inconsistency that I wanted to note. Now, as for the actual yarn that these mallets are wrapped with, I did a quick search online to see if I can find anything about either of the two yarns, and after a very, very lazy Google search and non-in-depth research, I didn't find anything conclusive, but my hunch is that there is at least some synthetic material in this mallet, and I can tell that because when this yarn wears, it doesn't seem to be losing any of its color, and the way that it kind of fuzzes up seems kind of like nylon to me, so those are kind of clues towards either at least partly acrylic yarn or maybe some nylon material in there. And then the way it feels certainly feels synthetic, very much like nylon to me. And then speaking of the mallet wearing, I've had these for a few months now, been using them a little bit. There's basically no noticeable wear at all. Great job, MarimbaOne, creating a very durable mallet. get into some of my final thoughts about these mallets. So the first and most important thing I want to address is, yes, these mallets have that MarimbaOne slappy contact sound going on. And surprisingly, I didn't hate it. It was kind of fun to play around with. It was percussive, it was groovy, it was really good pairing with the pizzicato upright, which I added in afterwards. I liked hearing those two together. So in those scenarios, it's really great to have this kind of what I think of as like a dirty tone mallet. So the next thing to address is, yes, these mallets are heavy. Well, they're at least a little weighted. And there was a lot of frame noise going on, a lot of creaking and buzzing from my MarimbaOne Vibraphone back here. So definitely if you're in a solo or even like a duo environment, just like that with my VST bass and me playing vibes, you gotta watch out for that because it can get pretty loud at times, and if you hit it like just the wrong moment when your foot's coming up off the pedal, you can get some pretty loud cracks in there. Something else, the material, the yarn material. It's very durable, yes, but when you have synthetic materials and nylons and things in your mallet, they tend to be a little louder when you're mallet muting. There's a little bit of that hiss sound, which is, again, something that isn't a problem when you're with a band, but the fewer people there are around you, the more noticeable it might become. As well as like the head shape, the round head shape is not the best for mallet muting. The like Dave Friedman shaped like bullet head where you have that big flat side is really great. When you have kind of a smaller point of contact on a round mallet, you can get kind of some buzzing when you go in for the mallet muting, and then on top of that with the hiss, just something to watch out for. Not the best mallet for mallet muting. So what are my recommendations for what environments to use these mallets in? Personally, I like using graduated mallet sets. I thought that the 3s and the 2s worked pretty well together. The 3 is a bass mallet, but I know that's not a lot of people's cup of tea, especially for jazz. So the 2s, I felt like they're really great ensemble mallets. These are your all-rounder, like medium hard mallets. They have a great tone. You can use them pretty much anywhere. You can play fast with them. You can play 4 mallets with them very easily. When I play with big bands, sometimes I'll use these because that extra weight gets me a lot of extra volume, so I can compete with multi-person horn sections when I have a vibe line with like the trumpet section per se. Really great for use in ensembles, really great for use in small groups. I probably wouldn't be using this if I was playing solo, duo, or just in like a really quiet, small kind of group. I have like cleaner, lighter mallets for that kind of thing. But in an ensemble, go for it. These mallets are great. As for the 3s, these mallets are a little bit more interesting because I know soft mallets are kind of, I want to say, underrated on the vibraphone. Jazz vibraphonists and classical vibraphonists tend to stick with just one hardness of mallet, and it's usually that medium to medium hard, dare I say hard, mallet hardness. But I really love the full tone that these mallets get. They definitely start to die out a bit in the upper register, as you heard in the sound test. Volume wise, I was impressed, but you're going to get a ton of frame noise up there, and the duration of the actual note ringing is not going to be as long as in the low register where it's a bit more at home. Jason Marsalis actually makes some ambient music for the vibraphone. You can go check that out if you want to. And I know that he uses these mallets for that sort of music. And I think they're fantastic for that. I should know because I use these mallets on my ambient song, Whale Shark, in my left hand for that main motif with these big fifths on the very bottom of the vibraphone. And I think they sound fantastic. They sound full. They're big and lumbering, and they're really great in that scenario. There are some other times where I've used this mallet. Maybe I'm in a big band and I need my instrument to sound lower than it actually does. Like if I'm hitting a big root with the trombone section, I'll probably use this mallet over something harder with a bunch of overtones. That's a good use case for this. But generally these are definitely going to be more niche than the JMR2s that I have right over here. So my final verdict. should you buy these mallets? Well, obviously you can go back and listen to the sound test and look at the build quality and decide for yourself, but if you're asking me, I think yes. I think these are some of the best mallets that MarimbaOne has made, which is kind of ironic because they're Vibraphone mallets, right? I've played with all 4 of the models in this series, even though I wasn't able to review the other 2 today, and they're all fantastic mallets. They all have their uses and they're all very strong in their niche. My favorite are the 2s. If you're looking for a great all-rounder mallet, I think this mallet can do just about anything. So I definitely recommend it. And if you can afford that $58 price point and you have space in your mallet bag, I say go for it. One last thing, this is the first mallet review that I've done, so if you have any recommendations or if you want to see more, subscribe, let me know, like the video, comment. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.